In the heart of the Zephyrian Empire, Princess Aria stood on the balcony of the royal palace, her violet eyes fixed on the stars glimmering in the night sky. As the sole heir to the throne, she had always dreamed of venturing beyond her homeworld, exploring the wonders of the galaxy. However, the Zephyrians' deep-rooted suspicion of other species, especially humans, had long hindered her aspirations. The Zephyrians prided themselves on their advanced technology and self-sufficiency. For centuries, they had isolated themselves from the galactic community, believing that interacting with other species would only lead to conflict and corruption. No Zephyrian royal had ever set foot on a human vessel, until now. Princess Aria had made a stunning announcement. For her coming-of-age journey, a rite of passage for all Zephyrian royals, she would embark on a voyage aboard a human starship. The decision sent shockwaves through the Empire, with many viewing it as a betrayal of their values and traditions. The Emperor, Aria's father, initially forbade her plan, fearing that associating with humans would tarnish the Empire's reputation and jeopardize their way of life. However, Aria's determination was unyielding. She argued passionately, insisting that the Zephyrians' isolation had only bred ignorance and prejudice. "Father, if we continue to shut ourselves off from the galaxy, we will never grow, never learn," Aria pleaded. "I believe there is much we can gain from cooperation and understanding. Let me be the bridge between our worlds." Reluctantly, the Emperor agreed, but with strict conditions. Aria would be accompanied by an elite guard of Zephyrian warriors and her most trusted advisors. The human starship she would travel on, the U.S. Odyssey, was to be closely monitored to ensure the princess's safety and prevent any undue influence. As Aria prepared for her journey, whispers of discontent rippled through the Empire. Some saw her actions as a dangerous gamble, a threat to their very way of life. Others, however, quietly admired her courage and vision, recognizing that change, while frightening, was sometimes necessary for progress. On Earth, Captain Liam Hawkins of the U.S. Odyssey received the surprising news of Princess Aria's request. As a seasoned explorer known for his diplomacy and level-headedness, he understood the significance of this opportunity. A successful mission could bridge the gap between humans and Zephyrians, fostering a new era of cooperation and understanding. However, not everyone shared Captain Hawkins' enthusiasm. A group of human supremacists known as Earth First viewed Aria's presence as a threat, believing that allowing a Zephyrian royal on a human ship was a sign of weakness and submission. They vowed to stop the mission at any cost, convinced that humans should dominate the galaxy alone. As the U.S. Odyssey prepared for launch, tensions simmered both on Earth and Zephyria. Princess Aria, steadfast in her resolve, stepped aboard the human vessel, ready to embark on a journey that would challenge her own beliefs and those of her people. Little did she know that the greatest dangers lay not in the vast expanse of space, but in the prejudices and conspiracies that threatened to tear the fragile threads of peace apart. The stage was set for a clash of cultures, a battle of wills, and a test of the very essence of humanity. In a galaxy divided by fear and mistrust, Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins would soon discover that the path to understanding was fraught with peril and that the fate of two species hung in the balance. A clash of worlds. Princess Aria's heart raced as she stepped aboard the U.S. Odyssey, a marvel of human engineering. The sleek, silver corridors hummed with energy, a stark contrast to the organic curves and warm hues of Zephyrian ships. Aria marveled at the advanced technology, from the holographic displays to the artificial gravity that kept her feet firmly planted on the deck. Captain Liam Hawkins greeted the princess with a respectful bow, his blue eyes warm and inviting. "Welcome aboard, Your Highness," he said, his voice steady and confident. "We're honored to have you join us on this historic mission." Aria returned the greeting, her own voice firm despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Thank you, Captain. I'm eager to learn about your people and your ways. I hope this journey will be the first step in building a bridge between our worlds." As the princess settled into her quarters, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. She knew her decision to travel with humans would face opposition from both her own people and some factions of humanity. The weight of her responsibility hung heavy on her shoulders. Meanwhile, in the bowels of the ship, a group of Earth-First infiltrators, led by the ruthless Commander Marcus Graves, laid in wait. They had managed to smuggle themselves aboard, disguised as maintenance crew, with the sole purpose of sabotaging the mission and discrediting Princess Aria. "We cannot allow this alien princess to sway our people," Graves growled, his dark eyes glinting with malice. "Humans must stand alone, superior to all other species. It's time we remind the galaxy of our strength." As the U.S. Odyssey set course for the neutral space station Galactic Hub, where representatives from various species were set to gather for a historic summit, tensions aboard the ship began to simmer. Some crew members, swayed by Earth-First propaganda, viewed Aria with suspicion and hostility, whispering behind her back and questioning her motives. Captain Hawkins, aware of the undercurrents of discontent, did his best to maintain order and foster a sense of unity among his crew. He organized joint training exercises and cultural exchange programs, hoping to break down the barriers of prejudice and misunderstanding. Princess Aria, for her part, threw herself into learning about human culture and technology. She spent hours in the ship's library, poring over history books and scientific journals, her eyes widening at the scope of human achievement. She also made a point to interact with the crew, engaging them in discussions about their lives and experiences. One evening, as Aria dined with Captain Hawkins in his private quarters, she confided in him about her hopes and fears. "I know my presence here is controversial," she said, her eyes downcast, "but I truly believe that our peoples have much to learn from each other. We cannot let fear and prejudice dictate our future." Hawkins reached across the table, his hand gently covering hers. "You're a brave woman, Princess Aria. Your vision for a united galaxy is one I share. Together, we can show the world that cooperation and understanding are the keys to lasting peace." Just as the bond between Aria and Hawkins began to grow, Commander Graves and his Earth-First followers set their nefarious plan into motion. In the dead of night, they struck, sabotaging the ship's engines and life support systems, hoping to cripple the Odyssey and force it to turn back. Alarms blared throughout the ship as red emergency lights pulsed in the darkness. Captain Hawkins, Princess Aria, and the loyal crew members scrambled to contain the damage and identify the saboteurs. In the chaos, Aria and Hawkins found themselves cut off from the rest of the ship, facing not only the threat of Earth-First, but also the looming specter of a greater conspiracy that threatened to unravel the very fabric of galactic peace. With time running out and the fate of two species hanging in the balance, Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins would have to rely on their wits, their courage, and their budding trust in each other to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. The journey had only just begun, but the stakes had never been higher. Conspiracies unmasked. As Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins raced through the crippled corridors of the U.S. Odyssey, their minds whirled with the revelation of the Earth-First saboteurs among the crew. The once trusted faces of their shipmates now held an air of menace, and trust seemed a luxury they could no longer afford. "We have to get to the bridge," Hawkins panted, his brow furrowed with determination. "If we can regain control of the ship's systems, we might be able to expose the traitors and call for help." Aria nodded, her heart pounding in her chest as they navigated the dimly lit passageways. The ship groaned and shuddered around them, a testament to the damage inflicted by the saboteurs. She couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Had her presence on the ship somehow invited this chaos? As they neared the bridge, a sudden movement caught their attention. Commander Graves emerged from the shadows, flanked by a group of armed Earth-First followers. His eyes gleamed with a fanatic light as he leveled his weapon at the princess and the captain. "Going somewhere?" Graves sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You really thought you could unite humans and aliens, princess? Your naivety will be your downfall." Hawkins stepped forward, shielding Aria with his body. Stand down, Graves. This is mutiny, and it will not be tolerated on my ship. Graves laughed, a harsh and grating sound. Your ship? You're nothing but a puppet. Hawkins, dancing to the tune of alien influence. Earth First will restore humanity's rightful place in the galaxy, and will start by making an example of you and your precious princess. Just as tensions reached a breaking point, a voice crackled over the ship's intercom. Attention all crew members. This is Lieutenant Commander Olivia Chen. We have uncovered evidence of a wider conspiracy involving Earth First and certain factions within the Zephyrian government. They've been working together to sabotage the peace summit and incite a war between our species. Graves' face contorted with rage as he realized his plans had been exposed. In a last-ditch effort, he lunged at Area, his weapon raised. Hawkins reacted instinctively, tackling the commander to the ground as the princess dove for cover. A brief but brutal struggle ensued, ending with Hawkins subduing Graves and his followers with the help of loyal security officers. As the dust settled, Area and Hawkins exchanged a look of relief tinged with apprehension. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the revelation of a conspiracy between Earth First and rogue Zephyrian elements cast a dark shadow over their mission. We have to get this information to the Peace Summit, Area said, her voice filled with urgency. If we don't expose the truth, both our peoples could be plunged into a war based on lies and manipulation. Hawkins nodded grimly, his jaw set with determination. Agreed. We'll make repairs to the ship and set course for Galactic Hub immediately. The truth must come to light, no matter the cost. As the U.S. Odyssey limped towards its destination, Princess Area and Captain Hawkins knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. The conspiracies they had uncovered ran deep, and trust would be a precious commodity in the days to come. Yet, in the face of adversity, they found strength in each other and in the knowledge that their cause was just. The fate of two species, and perhaps the galaxy itself, rested on their shoulders. A fragile alliance. As the U.S. Odyssey approached Galactic Hub, Princess Area and Captain Hawkins prepared to face the daunting task of exposing the conspiracy that threatened to derail the peace summit. The evidence they had gathered was damning, implicating high-ranking officials from both Earth First and rogue Zephyrian factions in a plot to sabotage the negotiations and incite a war between their species. Area paced the length of her quarters, her mind racing with the implications of their discovery. She knew that revealing the truth would be a delicate process, one that could easily backfire if not handled with the utmost care. We need to be strategic about how we present this information, she said, turning to face Hawkins. Many will be reluctant to believe that members of their own species could be involved in such a treacherous scheme. Hawkins nodded, his eyes narrowed in thought. You're right. We can't just lay all our cards on the table at once. We need to build a case, gather allies, and present the evidence in a way that leaves no room for doubt. As the ship docked at Galactic Hub, a sense of tension hung in the air. Representatives from various species, including humans and Zephyrians, had already gathered for the summit, their faces a mix of hope and apprehension. Area and Hawkins knew that their actions in the coming hours could determine the fate of not just their own peoples, but the entire galactic community. They began by reaching out to trusted contacts within their respective governments, sharing snippets of the evidence they had collected and gauging reactions. Some were shocked and horrified, pledging their support to expose the conspiracy. Others were more guarded, hesitant to believe that their own kind could be capable of such treachery. Undeterred, Area and Hawkins continued to build their case, piecing together an intricate web of deceit that stretched across light years. They worked tirelessly, foregoing sleep and sustenance, driven by the knowledge that time was running out. As the summit convened, tensions were high. Accusations flew back and forth, with each species pointing fingers and laying blame at the feet of others. Amidst the chaos, Area and Hawkins took the stage, their presence commanding the attention of the entire assembly. Esteemed delegates, Area began, her voice clear and strong. We come before you today with a heavy burden, the burden of truth, one that threatens the very foundation of the peace we seek to build. With measured words and irrefutable evidence, the princess and the captain laid bare the conspiracy, exposing the rot that had taken hold within their own ranks. They spoke of the need for accountability, for justice, and for a renewed commitment to the ideals of unity and cooperation. As the evidence mounted, the assembly fell silent, the weight of the revelations sinking in. Slowly, tentatively, a murmur of support began to build, as delegates from various species stood in solidarity with Area and Hawkins. We cannot let the actions of a misguided few dictate the future of our galaxy, Hawkins declared, his voice ringing with conviction. We must stand together, united in our determination to build a better tomorrow for all our peoples. In that moment, as applause erupted and the tide of opinion began to turn, Princess Area and Captain Hawkins knew that they had taken the first step towards forging a true alliance. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but they had shown that even in the face of darkness, hope and unity could prevail. The journey was far from over, but together they would strive to build a galaxy where cooperation and understanding reigned supreme, and where the bonds of friendship and trust could transcend the barriers of species and culture. Trials and tribulations. In the aftermath of the revelations at the Peace Summit, Princess Area and Captain Hawkins found themselves thrust into the center of a galactic maelstrom. The conspiracy they had exposed had sent shockwaves through both human and Zephyrian societies, stirring up long-simmering tensions and threatening to unravel the fragile threads of diplomacy. On Earth, the news of Earth First's treachery sparked outrage and disbelief. Many struggled to come to terms with the fact that members of their own species had been willing to sabotage the peace process for the sake of misguided notions of human supremacy. Protests erupted in the streets, with citizens demanding accountability and a renewed commitment to galactic cooperation. In the halls of power, political factions jockeyed for position, some seeking to use the crisis to their own advantage. Captain Hawkins found himself called before a Senate inquiry, facing intense scrutiny from those who questioned his actions and motives. He stood tall in the face of adversity, his testimony a resounding defense of the principles of unity and understanding. We cannot allow fear and prejudice to dictate our future, he declared, his voice firm and unwavering. The actions of a misguided few must not be allowed to overshadow the potential for greatness that lies within us all. We must learn to see beyond our differences and work together towards a common goal. On Zephyria, the revelations of the rogue faction's involvement in the conspiracy had sent the imperial court into a frenzy. Princess Area found herself at the center of a political firestorm, with some accusing her of treason for her association with humans, while others hailed her as a visionary who had dared to challenge the status quo. Amidst the chaos, Area's father, Emperor Zoran, struggled to maintain order and unity within the empire. He faced pressure from hardline elements who demanded a return to isolationism, while more progressive factions called for greater engagement with the galactic community. In a historic address to the Zephyrian people, Emperor Zoran spoke of the need for change and adaptation. We cannot cling to the past, to the comfort of our own prejudices, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it. My daughter, Princess Area, has shown us the way forward, and I stand with her in the belief that cooperation and understanding are the keys to our future. As the political battles raged on, Princess Area and Captain Hawkins found solace in each other's company. The trials they had faced together had forged a bond between them, a deep and abiding friendship that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. In stolen moments between the chaos, they would meet in the palace gardens or aboard the U.S. Odyssey, sharing their hopes and fears for the future. They drew strength from each other, finding comfort in the knowledge that they were not alone in their struggle. I never imagined that my journey would lead me here, Area confessed one evening, her eyes fixed on the stars above. But I know in my heart that this is the path I was meant to walk. With you by my side, I feel like anything is possible." Hawkins smiled, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "Together, we will build a future that our peoples can be proud of. A future where our children will grow up knowing only peace and understanding." As the days turned into weeks, the tide slowly began to turn. The evidence against the conspirators mounted, and one by one, they were brought to justice. The trials were long and arduous, but in the end, the truth prevailed. On the day of the final verdict, Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins stood side by side in the Great Hall of Justice on Galactic Hub. As the guilty verdicts were read out, a hush fell over the assembled crowd. The weight of the moment was palpable, a sense that history was being made. In the aftermath, as the dust began to settle, Aria and Hawkins knew that their work was far from over. The conspiracy had been exposed, but the wounds it had inflicted on the galactic community would take time to heal. They pledged themselves to the task of rebuilding, of forging new alliances and strengthening old ones. They traveled the galaxy, meeting with leaders and citizens alike, spreading their message of hope and unity. And through it all, their bond only grew stronger. What had begun as a political alliance had blossomed into something deeper, a love that defied the boundaries of worlds and species. As they stood on the observation deck of the U.S. Odyssey, watching the stars drift by, Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins knew that they had found something rare and precious, a love that would guide them through the trials and tribulations that lay ahead, and a shared vision of a galaxy where all beings could live in harmony. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, but in the end, they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to build a better future for all. And with each other by their side, they knew that anything was possible. A new dawn. Months had passed since the galactic conspiracy had been exposed and the perpetrators brought to justice. In that time, Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins had worked tirelessly to heal the wounds left by the crisis, traveling the galaxy to promote understanding and cooperation between species. Their efforts had not been in vain. Slowly but surely, the tide of public opinion had begun to turn. The once hostile rhetoric that had dominated the discourse had given way to a new spirit of openness and curiosity. Humans and Zephyrians alike were beginning to see each other not as rivals or enemies, but as potential friends and allies. On Earth, the government had implemented sweeping reforms to root out the last vestiges of Earth First and other extremist groups. A new generation of leaders had emerged, committed to the ideals of galactic cooperation and peaceful coexistence. In the Zephyrian Empire, Emperor Zoran had thrown his full support behind his daughter's vision of a more open and engaged society. He had begun to dismantle the centuries-old barriers that had kept the Zephyrians isolated from the rest of the galaxy, encouraging trade, cultural exchange, and scientific collaboration with other species. And at the heart of it all were Aria and Hawkins, the unlikely couple who would become the face of a new era of galactic peace. Their love story had captured the imagination of billions, a symbol of the power of love to transcend differences and bring people together. As they stood hand in hand on the balcony of the Imperial Palace, overlooking the sprawling city below, Aria and Hawkins couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at how far they had come. "When I first set foot on your ship, I never could have imagined that we would end up here," Aria said softly, leaning her head against Hawkins' shoulder. "That we would have the chance to change the course of galactic history." Hawkins smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I knew from the moment I met you that you were special," he murmured, "that you had the courage and the vision to chase a dream that others would have dismissed as impossible." As they watched the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Aria and Hawkins knew that their journey was far from over. There would be new challenges to face, new obstacles to overcome. But they also knew that they would face them together, united by their love and their shared vision of a better future. And as the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they made a silent promise to each other. A promise to never stop fighting for what they believed in, to never stop working towards a galaxy where all beings could live in peace and harmony. They had come so far, and there was still so much left to do. But with each other by their side, they knew that anything was possible, that together they could build a new dawn for the galaxy, a future bright with hope and promise. And so, hand in hand, Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins turned to face the future, ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. They had each other, and they had the love and support of billions across the galaxy. And with that, they knew that they could face anything that the universe had in store. A future together. Years had passed since Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins had first set out on their mission to bring peace and unity to the galaxy. In that time, they had faced countless challenges and overcome seemingly insurmountable odds, always standing together in the face of adversity. And now, as they stood hand in hand on the observation deck of the U.S. Odyssey, they couldn't help but reflect on all that they had accomplished. The galaxy was a different place now, a place where cooperation and understanding had replaced suspicion and mistrust. The Zephyrian Empire had become a beacon of hope and progress, a shining example of what could be achieved when a society embraced change and opened itself up to the wider galaxy. Under Aria's leadership, the Empire had forged new alliances and partnerships, sharing its advanced technology and knowledge with other species for the betterment of all. Earth, too, had undergone a remarkable transformation. The once insular and xenophobic planet had become a hub of galactic diplomacy and trade, a place where beings from all corners of the universe could come together in the spirit of friendship and cooperation. And at the center of it all were Aria and Hawkins, the couple whose love had become a symbol of hope and unity for an entire galaxy. They had faced their share of challenges over the years, but their bond had only grown stronger with each passing day. As they looked out at the stars, Aria leaned her head against Hawkins' shoulder, a contented smile on her face. "Do you remember when we first met?" she asked softly. "When I first stepped aboard this ship, determined to change the course of history." Hawkins chuckled, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "How could I forget?" he murmured. "You were like a force of nature, a whirlwind of determination and courage. I knew from that moment that my life would never be the same." Aria smiled, her eyes shining with love and gratitude. "And you were my rock, my anchor in the storm. I couldn't have done any of this without you by my side." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Aria and Hawkins knew that their journey was far from over. There would always be new challenges to face, new frontiers to explore. But they also knew that they would face them together, united by their love and their unwavering commitment to each other. And as they looked to the future, they couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and hope. They had already accomplished so much, but there was still so much left to do. So many worlds to visit, so many beings to meet, so many new adventures waiting just beyond the horizon. But for now, they were content to simply be together, to bask in the warmth of each other's love and the knowledge that they had made a difference. They had fought for a better future, and they had won. And now, as they stood on the threshold of a new era, they knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Hand in hand, heart to heart, Princess Aria and Captain Hawkins turned to face the stars, ready to embrace the endless possibilities of the universe. They had each other, and they had the love and support of a grateful galaxy. And with that, they knew that anything was possible.